Hello, class. My name is Ryan Gonzalez, and this is my third episode of my podcast in which I'm talking about major depressive disorder. To sum up basically everything that I have discussed in the first and second podcasts, first we had to do just general research on our topic. Uh, to begin, 2.3 million adolescents 12 to 17 in 2017 had at least one major depressive episode with severe impairments. So clearly, like that's a lot of kids that go through this, and also that's 6.1 million adults, which is about 6.7% of the population, suffer from depressive disorder. Those are just little facts that I just wanted to sum up, and also some the symptoms include separation anxiety, withdrawal from social activities, anger and irritability, substance abuse, and in worst case self harm, which unfortunately does happen a lot. And then last week, or last podcast, I should say, we discussed different perspectives, the different theories on um, the selected disorder. I went over the cognitive theory and let me see here, the cognitive theory and the personality trait theory. These the cognitive theory is basically the way we think of ourselves and how we see the world that causes our depression, and the personality trait theory basically went over our like the way that we are as people and our individuality and how that uh, could cause major depressive disorder. So today we were assigned to discuss a specific topic with our illness. So today I would like to talk about the stigma that there is in society surrounding major depressive disorder. Just to give a general definition to make sure that we're all on the same page, a stigma is defined as a mark of disgrace associated with a particular circumstance, quality, or person. Now, a lot of the times in schools, especially and among young children, like people who suffer from mental health or have like mental health issues, um, they there's like a stigma attached around that. Like a lot of people look down on people that have major depressive disorder, for example, for this specific example. um, they could be labeled as like sad and a loner and like just a whole bunch of things, and like I feel like that's a big issue, but I also feel like the reason that this is an issue is because there's not a lot of education and not a lot of like conversation about depression in schools, and I feel like that is something that schools really need to start doing more, because depression is something that will develop into your adulthood and like could just cause like serious damage, and it's also something that could affect you during your adolescence and your teenage years. And I mean, unfortunately, as I stated earlier, self-harm is one of the big issues when it comes to depressive disorder. And a lot of kids unfortunately take their lives due to like their unstable mental health because of bullying, for example, and things like that. And I mean, unfortunately, not everybody in this world is really nice, so that doesn't really help the case. So I was reading an article from the Michigan Medicine Depression Center, from the University of Michigan, and I would like to read like a little bit of what they have to say. So they say, despite all the advances made in understanding depression and other mental illnesses, these conditions are still stigmatized. The negative perception of mental illness probably comes from the people not understanding mental illness or what it means to struggle with mental illness. See, I think that one of the ways to solve it is to give people perspective, to help people understand like what it's like to go through these things and how to see it in other people and how to help other people in order to prevent such terrible things happening to young kids and young children and even young adults and older adults, just people of all ages for the most part. So one of the ways they say that we could fight this stigma is to gain perspective, as I just stated. Depression is something you have, it does not define you. So, as I said earlier, people get labeled when they are labeled with a mental health issue. Like, people get all these negative names, people have negative perceptions, but it's something that they have. It's not something that actually makes them who they are. It's something that they suffer with daily, and that's something that I feel like needs to be emphasized a lot more. Um, so basically they say that like we should share our journey. If you were to suffer, share your journey, tell stories of what it's like to go through the illness, for example depression. Like, tell people, oh, like what caused it, or what it's like to, like, the treatment process and like the things that you felt and the things that you went through. Because I feel like if you tell people like your stories and you tell people how it was from your eyes, it'll open a lot of other eyes for people to see like, wow, like it's really really a big deal. Also, to share positive messages about mental health. So of course we have in society today a lot of ways to communicate. We have a lot of different ways to communicate than ever before, especially with social media. We could post on social media and we could promote positive messages about mental health, helping tips for other people to help other people, like how to help people, how to see if someone's going through a depressive state, which again is very important because the way I see it, it only takes one person to change somebody's life. You could be the change of somebody's life, and it's just very important to educate yourself. So another thing, of course, educate yourself and others about mental health. It's a very powerful tool, education, and it's very important that everyone understands what depression is like, because it is something that everybody could go through in their lifetime. Almost anyone could go through it. Also, being conscious of our language, being conscious of how we speak to others, like the words that we use. Like, for example, one that I learned on campus at FIU is that you're not supposed to say someone committed suicide, because that gives a negative stigma as to what they went through and what led to their death. They died by suicide, rather, is what should be said. Because if you say somebody died by suicide, suicide is a way of death, which is the reality of what it is. Instead of saying people that are mentally ill, you say people with a mental illness, because again, a mental illness does not define who somebody is. It's just something that they have. It's something that they're suffering, like a flu, like COVID, for example. It's a sickness. It's something that they are going through. It's not necessarily who they are. It doesn't make up their person. And also, most importantly, I think people should speak up. Like, if you see somebody struggling or going through anything, and like you could tell, speak up, ask them, but obviously in a appropriate manner. Just be there, be supportive. We all need to be more supportive of each other. We all need to be more loving with each other. And I feel like, again, as I said, it takes one person to change somebody's life, and you could be that change. You could be that change, that difference between whether someone takes their life or somebody or somebody gets better and somebody stays happy or becomes happy, and you could lead them into that right direction. So I just want to end this off by saying, do your research, look things up. We have great resources nowadays. You can learn a lot on FIU. You can learn a lot anywhere. So I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I feel like this was a very important topic because there's a big stigma around this. And yeah, I'll see you guys on the next podcast.